Go.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is a work session. We're going to start at 6 p.m. Make it roll call.
Michael Cashman.
Present.
Thomas Wood.
Present.
Meg Bobbin.
Here.
Barbara Hebert.
Here.
Charles Costick.
Here.
Jim Coffey.
Here.
And Catherine Coolidge, I'm present.
Looking out, seeing nothing for public comment. I don't really have anything to contribute for supervisor's report, so we'll jump right into some materials. Going to bounce around just a little bit, so stay with me. There is a packet of draft minutes, and I do want to bring to the floor for consideration Resolution 106, authorized to advertise bids for the project entitled River Street ampersand intersection improvements and River Street sidewalk extension.
Whereas the town board has previously authorized the improvements required for the River Street and Ampersand Drive intersection improvements and River Street sidewalk extension capital project, and whereas AES North PLLC has prepared documents for the bid proposals to be advertised, now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to advertise bids for the project entitled River Street and Ampersand Drive intersection improvements and River Street sidewalk extension, and that said advertisement shall be placed in the Press Republican with bids to be opened at the town of Plattsburgh Town Hall located at 151 Banker Road, Plattsburgh, New York 12901 on July 30th, 2021 at 10 a.m. Resolved that the town of Plattsburgh Town Board reserves the right to reject any or all bids offered, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution is to be given to the town clerk, the highway superintendent, the planning and community development department, and the finance manager.
Is there a motion?
Move.
Wood. Is there a second?
Second.
Costick. I just want to add a little additional context. Again, this relates to advancing this project more beyond the traffic study that had occurred, and I just want to give them a public thank you again. Initially, we had done a public-private partnership where You First Credit Union stepped up, and certainly they're not the only business, but they did lean forward and say they've seen a number of car accidents over the years in that particular location, knowing the need for some type of change or mitigation. And again, so the idea of this is to get this out, to use the month of July to collect bids with the hope that we may be able to engage in some type of fall construction season. Obviously, if we get responses that don't meet the financial needs, we will not advance this, but this was something that both Patrick and Trevor and I, in some conversations, felt we could at least put forward and see where we go from it. So, and I know there's a lot of community interest. All you got to do is go down the back way and try to take that, left turn, and it's difficult. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Yeah, we'll do a roll call.
Tom Wood.
Yes.
Meg Bobbin.
Yes.
Barbara Hebert.
Yes.
Charles Costick.
Yes.
And Michael Cashman.
Yes, resolution does carry. Thank you. We'll get that out shortly. Other materials are in draft. Budget amendments. I know there was one question as it relates to rec, using some parkland funds. Those are really driven by the fact when there's, say a subdivision, that a portion of funds goes into the particular park, and in short term, still a little while out, we're going to be seeing some new park equipment out in the park in our town park off of Champlain Park, which will, I think, be a really, really nice new addition there. So that's one example. And then we're not going to completely ruin the surprise, because we'll get into it a little bit more next week. But there is a resolution, declaration of July as the official month for Michigan Month. And many people know that that's a regional food that people have associated with Plattsburgh. And I think one of my favorite whereases, and read it again, is the Michigan is forever buried in regional culture. Jess did a really great job with that, but we'll take that up next week as well. And then finally, again, not gonna act on it tonight, but did want to get this before you, is this would be a contract with the LaBerge Group for the preparation of a CFA consolidated funding application for New York Road Green Infrastructure Project. And it is truly New York Road on the old air base. And when we talk about green infrastructure, I think it's critical to understand that, even though we're a NYSERDA community with clean energy, it's not green energy even just in, the language today. It's better using resources to address infrastructure that has really needed addressing, out there, like a road diet, some things that will just manage that space, a lot better. And we do have some reserves right now and a fund, and what we're trying to do, again, from the initial study, is to leverage all of those resources with new state granting opportunities, and to couple that together and really kind of pool our resources. So what you have with you is the grant service proposal, and wanted you to kind of just have an opportunity to get a sense of, how detailed and robust that is. And it will, again, there's even a map in there that gives you just kind of a general sense of some of the location. The last thing that I would offer you is New York is one of the roads that the town and the city end up connecting on. So if this were to get funded, it would not fund their portion of the road, but it would be a good opportunity to have further conversations and collaboration, so that as the city does some of their infrastructure and updates, that it could be done, kind of dovetailed. So, and Chris and I have had some conversations and told him that we would keep him up to date on that, which is just really good. And to Meg's credit, when we were talking about the Plattsburgh Compact, we were having just these conversations about, like, missed opportunities. The missed opportunities isn't missing the conversation. So this is just one of those ones that, we could be prepared to do this, and we just need to keep them aware of it. So, all right?
And with Michael, with the consolidated funding application process, that's important because we're never always in cycle with our budget preparation, correct?
Correct. So a lot of times what happens with the work that we do, and I know that I and many of you have said this, is that we have a legacy of planning. Much of the work that we do becomes on a 2 to 3 year cycle. Because a lot of times what happens is, for us to be competitive for these grants, is we need to have a study or a plan, okay, that we can act on. And then we go out for the grant to be competitive, and then in that following cycle is when we can begin to activate some of these funds. So sometimes a study becomes a plan, and then grant to funding, or sometimes the plan, because sometimes the plan and the study get meshed together, depending on what it is, but.
New
York Road is about 3/4 in town of Plattsburgh?
Yeah, probably at least that.
Is the city up to date enough on exactly what we're doing that they might also be able to go after some CFA funding?
I do not want to speak for where Chris's mindset is with all of his projects.
Are they gonna be updated step by step on what we're doing?
yes, they will know that if this gets approved, that they will know that we're going after CFA funding. But I don't know what they're doing on the south portion, if that makes sense.
If something like that came up and we're going after that particular funding, is the shared services, does that ever come into it in terms of?
It could potentially come into it.
Sometimes that frees up, hey, two municipalities are working on it.
Yeah. But I would dare say that we wouldn't activate this without some of the additional funding, because the amount of money that we have on hand could not begin to complete the project. So, we may be able to couple some things. So to what Meg's question is, will the city know that we're going after this? Yep. So if, we get the funding and they feel that they can be in a position to go after some funding or compete after it themselves, or if they wanna bond or ban or, however they wanna pay for it, then they can do that. The nice part, I would say though, is even though the road, the line, connects at some point, the way that the infrastructure is, that if we didn't do it in concert at the time, it would not be to a complete detriment to either side though.
Okay.
There still would be an opportunity for it to find some points of connection. It's just like anything though, right? If you're going down any road, you would like to see it paved all at once, just because as you're going down, you don't wanna, so, that is.
I'm thinking more like a couple steps ahead of us actually receiving the funding and then telling the city, oh, by the way, we've got this funding.
No,
So
we're
they're
good.
aware of the process along the way, so they can also,
Yep,
yes,
Yeah.
if they're interested.
yep, no, I told Chris on Wednesday that we're applying for this, and again, if the board, supports moving forward on it, Trevor will be the point person to continue to work with them, so.
Are we being aggressively optimistic if we look at 2022?
For,
Getting this,
yeah, I mean, the CFA acknowledgement or award, I think usually doesn't occur.
2021?
Yeah, towards the end of the year. So this project would not begin this year.
Right.
We're basically,
For the
turning
end
over.
of 2022 then?
Say that again?
Would
Yeah.
it be for the end of 2022?
No, if the awards, occur at the end of 2021, and then, we would have to accept whatever the award is, the conditions of whatever the grants are and stuff like that, right? But then I would imagine that some of the construction could occur in 2022, probably the early portion of it, but there's a lot going on here though. I mean, so, I'm glad that we advanced the planning department to planning and community development, because this is a good example of, it meets a couple of different things. One is it hits upon infrastructure, but it also hits upon things like, making that road more bikeable, if that's good English, and the city, for example, you may have read in the newspaper a couple of days ago, was trying to expand upon, safer bike routes and things like that, so.
Is that what this other one is, for the former Air Base Bike Lanes project?
Yeah, it's all interconnected as a larger,
Okay.
package.
Well, that's what I thought, I just want to make sure.
Yep. So, I'm gonna pick up on Katie for just a moment, because I know she has some really good news. So, do you wanna,
Oh, boy.
do you know what I'm asking you?
I think so. This morning I had a sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffin from McDonald's. I'm just kidding, that's not why.
But you did have the sausage.
But I actually did. It was lovely. It's a special treat, once in a blue moon. No, what he said, he was commenting on is just the fact that, the town clerk office now can officially sell hunting and fishing licenses. Yay, and this is great because, yeah, we put a press release out because it's good because ultimately, even though Kevin had done the work and he was able to as well, but then when COVID happened, the town building shut down, he didn't even get to sell one. And so I had to re-license, like we had to do the testing, we had to redo everything, redo the application process, 15-page application process, we had to do everything as if we were brand new. Because it's held within the licensing agent, basically, not the place where they're sold, it's by person, basically. So anyway, so we did it all, and we're glad to be able to offer that to our residents right here at the tent, so that's all.
And I know people, you know, over the years, you know, have really, sought that as a service. So thank you for kind of throwing that on the front of the heap, you know, because people will, certainly be leaning in.
Certainly, yeah, never had some calls, and so I was excited when we were able to
You
get
still got the
in.
computer up, because my fishing license. We can go.
Our office hours, Chuck, are Monday, Friday, 9 till
Even right
4,
now.
Thursdays until
Chuck on
5:30.
service there.
Very good, very good.
Well, she's extended hours
She's
on
extended
Thursday.
hours on Thursday,
Thursdays
Chuck.
until 5:30.
Bring her an egg McMuffin.
It sounds like someone's
Egg and
fishing.
sausage with cheese.
She likes them so much.
Or take her out for ice cream, one or the other.
Are there any other, committee reports that anybody wants to cover?
You want me to hit park?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Michael did mention the equipment for Cumberland Head was supposed to, you know, for the equipping, or excuse me, Champlain Park, Recreation Park was supposed to be in right about now. We should have been working on, was the original plan, but, as has been the case with COVID, it's delayed. Probably looking in mid-August at this point. The other big thing, and we actually met with the Park Advisory Committee Tuesday night at the Cumberland Head Park. When that committee meets, we meet at a different park right now this time of year, so you know, gets exposure for some of the folks, to some of the other parks. I think as everybody knows, before COVID hit, we removed the tennis courts at Treadwell's with the intent of resurfacing, completely redoing, and turning those into pickleball courts. What's happened in the interim is we put some additional lines down on the tennis courts at West Plattsburgh. And the pickleball folks have been using the West Plattsburgh Park for their pickleball because we have not yet, you know, completed Treadwell's. The plan was to finish that up with the paving season this year. They've requested, and it worked with Mel on the potential of maybe doing the pickleball courts at West Plattsburgh instead of Treadwell's. So Mel came up with a proposal for the committee, which kind of pivots a little bit, where we would actually repaint the surface at West Plattsburgh. That tennis court area is big enough to put 6 pickleball courts on it. Treadwell's would only been 4, so it would be able to have 6 pickleball courts on that surface. Treadwell's would still be repaved, but would actually be made into a basketball court.
Is there not a basketball court there now?
There is, I think, right, for that one? She said yes, but it was really bad. Or maybe there isn't one for that one. I'm not,
Maybe it's tennis, but I thought.
yeah.
there's a tennis.
I'd have to get back to you for that one for absolutely, to be absolutely sure. Now, I hate to say yea or nay, one or the other. That had to be repaved anyways. So we repaved, that would be used as a basketball court, which really, given the area, probably would get used more routinely by the residents of that area, which is what the idea is behind the parks anyways.
Has there been any indication that the people want that particular thing versus something else?
I don't think there's been an indication of it. Now, to be honest with you, I mean, I don't think anybody's come forward with it.
Are there any actual tennis courts in any of the parks, or we take all the tennis courts?
Oh, no, you have tennis courts in Katyville, East Morrisonville, Wallace Hill, and, what did you just say?
Mayberry.
Yeah, Courier, Champlain Park. those all have tennis courts still. So the idea would be to put the 6 there in West Plattsburgh. So if you look at West Plattsburgh, you have tennis courts in Katyville and East Morrisonville, which are on either side of that park. You know, they're both relatively close to that park. Treadwells would become a basketball court. What would typically happen when you pave it, you have to put the paint and surface on top of it anyways. So the paint and surface, instead of doing it there, will be done in West Plattsburgh.
I thought that Judwell's Mills had tennis court originally, and they also had a basketball court. They had two different things.
I wanna say that there is still a basketball
Yes.
court there, but it's
Yeah.
in
Bad
Bad
shape.
condition.
pretty rough shape.
So what I'm getting at is, what we're saying is we're gonna offer them just one sport, just basketball, that's it. And I don't think that's
Well-
fair to the community.
Mel also, in the proposal, has, cornhole as an option there, and they're concrete, they're not permanent, but they're not movable either. So it's a really good neighborhood activity, and I'd say Mel and Aaron know the demographics of each neighborhood and the parks that are in each of those neighborhoods, and they think that cornhole and basketball would serve Treadwell Mills very good right now in this moment. And some of these sports seem to like cycle in and out, like tennis is really popular sometimes, but now pickleball seems to have taken over.
And speaking of pickleball, which, you know, I think all you have to do is speak to a, you know, not even a fanatic, there's people that are very excited about it, and there's a huge, huge following in this area, that pickleball is being taught in a lot of our K through 12 school districts, where that has really, you know, I think a lot of people think of pickleball as a senior sport, but it's not. I mean, tons and tons of youth are playing it, and the pickleball community has done a couple of tournaments, and, you know, kids, you know, teams of 2 individuals and stuff are definitely involved in it too.
So the demographics of Judwell's Mills isn't that there's a lot of children there, or a lot of people that would be playing pickleball.
Probably not pickleball. You know, in large part, I think it's a matter of where the community goes to. Like, the thing that I've always found fascinating, because I've driven by a couple places that have done it, is you could be never have played the sport before, showed up, and that community will bring you in, and they'll teach you, like, on the spot, which is kind of neat. They have found a new home over at this other location.
Yeah.
You know, and then with basketball, you know, it's kind of an expansion and an opportunity. The cornhole thing to me sounds kind of
Yeah.
neat,
And
so.
something else that the committee's been focusing on, Tom, is like curating activities in each park. And
Specific
Yes.
activities, so
To
that
the neighbor.
Yes.
each one draws
so it's
from
not just
everywhere.
like a mishmash of
Mhm.
everything everywhere. So
Yeah.
if we can make West Plattsburgh the pickleball park, and the pickleballers typically take really good care, and they're invested, they have a lot of ownership, and I think they lined the courts there.
Legion threw in some money with
Yeah.
it, we paid for some of it, but the pickleball people have actually purchased a leaf blower, so they're actually cleaning the court off themselves and maintaining, et cetera. And I think the other thing to think about it too, Tom, is if there's some sort of pushback in Treadwells, the next step would just be surface with the paint, with the tennis court type paint, if we needed to pivot
And
to
on the old
that.
basketball court, in other words, what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's down, it's gonna be roughly the size, you'd still would be able to put 2 tennis courts there. If it really did not seem to fit, you know, we already have the fencing, we saved the fencing, and, you know, we can pivot with that if we need to pivot with it.
So this would be the only location for cornhole then, is that correct?
For now,
It
yeah.
would be.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be a draw for all the areas that go there.
Could be. Could
Well,
be.
I think it's really neat, and, yeah, they're actually concrete,
Mhm.
you know,
I mean, I spend a lot of time watching cornhole on TV, it's
So
really,
it's fun.
it's quite
Yeah.
It's fun.
mesmerizing.
But I think it's a great activity, and I know Mel has already engaged, Chris LeFay from Northeast Irrigation, the potential of actually making. You know, and that may be something, we try it out there, that may be something that I mean, we could probably add that into just about any park. I mean, I don't think there's one of the parks that we have that we couldn't put a couple of those, cornhole.
So the cornhole's taken over from the horseshoes,
Yeah,
which is what I play in. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it. You know, the old fashioned thing, okay.
I do both, so I can play cornhole and horseshoes, so. But I think it's,
It's a family opportunity too.
Multi-sport.
Yes,
I think Meg and I both agree that we think it's a good plan. I think we can, it creates a little more purpose in each one of those parks, I think.
And credit to Mel for thinking
Mhm.
beyond just the plan that she had in her hand.
Yeah.
And kind of trying to drive that home and
Yeah, she,
going with what the residents who are currently active
mhm.
are requesting.
And it all stays within budget.
Yep.
Because the only thing, to throw the paint over at West Plattsburgh, it's the paint that will go down in Treadwell, so we just
And
pay
was
that company to
there
come
some
and surface that.
feedback from, Highway that was gonna pave this or do it?
Yeah, I think Tim's all set to do it, it's just the paver, I think they just fired it up this week because of the parts issues that they had, and when he told me they were doing a couple of roads this week, so.
My understanding was that originally he said he would do such and such a project, and now it's changed, and he said, you know, it might not have time to do it.
Well, I think that, I really, Tom, my belief is he didn't, I think he thought that he was gonna have to dig everything up over in West Plattsburgh.
Okay.
Because actually, when I talked to Tim about it, he was under that impression, but he's not gonna have to, he's still doing the same thing he did.
Okay.
He's still just paving in Treadwell, that's all he's doing.
Well, the good thing, Chuck, is you're talking about some adaptability. If something isn't gonna quite work or it doesn't work, I mean, you can, like you said,
Well,
you
that's
pivot.
what I like about it, you
You know,
can pivot
if
if
you
we
can
have to
pivot.
pivot, if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, we just moved that one up on, because we typically do 1 or 2 courts a year with the paint surface. So if it doesn't,
Mhm.
you know, if it doesn't, we move that one up to the top of the list and we do that one and put another one off another year.
So where's the horseshoe court? Just curious, 'cause
Chuck's backyard.
I haven't played that in a
We used
while.
to have it back there, yeah, we can do that.
Just make sure you play.
Any other?
I just have a question before I do a quick committee update. The outdoor concert that was held this past Saturday,
Oh.
did you get an update on attendance? And, because there were a lot of people
Yeah,
there.
Mel said there were 170 people.
Yeah.
And it raised
Yeah.
$400 for the rec.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was, they put the tip jar out for Amanda,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't want the money, she in turn donated it to the rec department.
She donated her time and everything.
And time and everything, and I believe September, there's probably gonna be another one. And the thought is maybe next year, this might become a monthly
Yeah, I think that would be awesome.
type series, yeah.
I think the location of that pavilion,
Yes.
and, I mean, again, just kudos to, I mean, Meg, you put a lot of work into help getting that, grant in, and then B&G, you know, put it together, and Mel and Erin, I mean, there's a lot of people that were on that project, but where that pavilion sits, just on that little tiny
Yep.
hill is perfect.
Yep.
Because it allows for, you know, a very small, musician or artist of some sort to be there. You know, we were talking, like, even the light, you know, that time of day
Oh, it's beautiful.
didn't
that part of
really
the park.
create, you know, huge headaches or blinding,
Yeah.
and like, just like how it kind of cut with the trees and stuff. And then it left kind of that big bowl opportunity for people to spread out, put blankets, and really enjoy, you know, the park, so.
Yeah, that's a big field.
Yeah.
There's a lot of space there,
And
plus
that's-
there's adequate parking in there.
And that room too for kids to run around
Yeah.
behind the
Yeah.
activity.
Yeah.
And you had some vendors there, so you had a food truck, you had an ice cream vendor, and the acoustics, when you talk about outdoor acoustics, I mean, I was in the middle and you could hear her very well.
But I think to Michael's point, you're up just enough.
Yeah, that it
You're
spreads out.
covered by trees all around, so I think it kind of holds the sound. I don't think it bothers the neighbors at all.
Any other committee
Yeah,
stuff?
just you know, it was a busy time for the assessor, and I wanna thank the Board of Assessment Review for their diligence in taking care of, looking at the determinations. And so just to put in the context, I think this board really looks at process, so just looking ahead to seeing how things can be improved from a process improvement standpoint, talking to Brian about that, I'd be grateful to any thoughts that any of our town board colleagues have on that, but.
Yeah, I know, I passed a couple
Did you?
along.
Yeah. So again, I wanna put in the context of just always process improvement, we're looking for ways to do things better and get feedback from our constituents, but,
I talked to Brian about some
Yeah.
stuff too.
okay,
Yeah.
good, I appreciate
Just
that.
a couple of small things.
Yep. That's it.
All right, I know of no reason to, go into an executive session this evening, so we will close up tonight at 6:30 PM. All right, thank you. Drive safe, everyone.
Leah just stole home base. And the softball game.
That girl. Bravo,
So
Leah.
Who taught her that? You or Bob? Go, go, go.
That was one of my favorite sportsmen. Chuck,
Is she playing over?
You know what I did?
They're in Cumberland Head.
Or is
You know what
is
I
her
did?
team out of
I hit
Canada?
myself in the head with
I gotta look that up
I
and
gave
make
up.
sure I get over that.
Chuck was pretty good at
I grabbed the
softball.
I
schedule.
was terrible.
Next week,
That was
they're,
fast.
well, Monday, Monday at 6 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, that's-
There is a
Let me
game.
see if
One
I
of her
can get
games.
there. Michael, pull around the side. I don't know what jogged my memory. I've got something for you.
No,
I'm trying to